Hello, Lori. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning to all of you. Let's let's start where we left off last time. My mother arrives from the hospital. She's in our home. She is cooking chicken, baked chicken, our favorite. And I see that now she's walking not 100 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour. She's doing awesome. We're so excited to have her there. And as I'm devouring this delicious chicken and even sucking my fingers, my father walks in the kitchen and says to her, "How could you do this to me? I love you. I am the best father and the best husband in the world. How can you do this to me?" My mother's like, "What?" And she says to him, "Lenny, I am sick." Let's put a pin on that for a second. And this I learn now as an adult that my superhero mom and my cool superhero dad have now shifted identities. The doctor told my mother that this nervous breakdown that she had in the parking lot was an episode of depression. The doctor told my mother this was an episode of possession, and she embodied that. Now I'm sick, I have depression. And if we take that to the 21st century, Jamie, help me out here. Overwhelmed, malnourished, a little bit of exercise, prioritizing her life, she would have been fine. And my father, shift of identity as a victim, that how could his wife do this to him? Moving forward, I'm in the social services office with my siblings. My mother is back in the hospital. My father takes his children to a nearby family friend, and I say friend, just we'll talk about that in a second. And as soon as he leaves, she calls social services and says, this man has abandoned their children here and I cannot take care of them. Social services arrive. We get to the office. They separate us in two different cars. The little ones in one car and my sister and me in the other. We get to the offices, and that short ride to that office, my mind was racing. I went to a dark place. Oliver Twist, Annie the orphan. Hell no. So when I got there, I started to negotiate, but I immediately noticed that these people were not villains. They were not going to hurt me. The other lady was the villain, but not these people. No, they wanted stability for these children. And I said, "Can we call my aunt? I said to them, I want to go home. I have a home. I have a dad and a mom." And they said, "Well, your mom is not available right now and not your dad. We'll find you some temporary foster care until we can sort this out." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I have family. I have an aunt. I have uncles. I have grandparents. Please call my aunt." And I gave them my aunt's name and I gave them her number. And they dialed it. But she wouldn't pick up the phone. My aunt wouldn't pick up the phone for months. I've been pranking her on the phone. A little mischievous, as you can tell. I would call her and say, "Hi, hi," and hang up. And we just had this camaraderie going on with the phone. I know it was probably driving her crazy, but she just entertained my burst of energy. And we drove. She wouldn't pick up, so we drove to her house. And in that moment, that's when I knew that there was more to this physical life that we even know. Because I had no idea that my aunt was in Puerto Rico picking up my grandfather so he could spend time with my mom and all his grandchildren. So when my aunt has had this beautiful home with these big black gates, iron gates, and as she opened those gates driving into the driveway, I'm driving up with the guy from social services, and I get off the car and I said, Titi Nidia. She's like, what are you doing here, Nisi? I saw my grandfather. I said, Grandpa, and all of a sudden, happiness. We went back to social services. My grandfather sat down. They explained to him everything. They pulled us out of there. He signed the documents. My little sister Jeannie sucking her thumb. We'll go and we go back to safety. And we're going to put a pin on that because if you know anything about the Hispanic community, this story is a telenovela, and that's for another day. As I become an adult, let's change the lens of adulthood. I have an ego bigger than my 5'3" body. I'm accomplishing so much. I'm following my parents' checklists. College check, master's check, CPA exam check. I bought my first piece of real estate, and I'm doing business. I'm renting some rooms to my friends, and I'm just on top of my game. Always helping people. That's something I learned from my parents, and I will always do that till the last breath that I take on this earth. I got married. I fell in love. I got married. I had 2 children. And everything was perfect. My world was certain. But I have to confess, I was feeling bored. I wasn't hanging out. All the people I know in my life, they have a purpose, but I wasn't feeling it. There was something missing. There was something missing, and I designed to go to Africa to do some nonprofit work. I love adventure, so why not go to Africa? My mother wasn't too happy with this. My mother is in the scene, of course. And she goes, why are you going to Africa? I'm like, I want to do something different. I need to do something. And we go to Africa. And right there and then I knew that I was on the right track. My girls were so into it, helping other children. We were helping in the schools. My husband was installing water tanks, and we were just for 2 weeks dedicating our time to these families and to these children. It was beautiful. And I knew what I wanted to do when I came back to Puerto Rico. I wanted to help more people and do something at a bigger scale. But as soon as I got off the plane, guess what? 2008 economy shattered. And you have to be very careful of what we wish for, because it's easy to say that you were bored of certainty when you know there's a lot of people who can't even pay their electricity bills or buy enough food for their families. That was a little selfish on my part. But to have to work and to accomplish things that are beyond your control, this uncertainty gave me a little kick. And I was like pushing and pushing and pushing forward. Took a toll on me physically. I would say my pants started not fitting, but that's fine. I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. We saved our assets, and I helped so many other people save their assets. And what's fascinating is that without doing it purposely, it was like a research. I started validating and seeing patterns into all the people I was helping. They had one thing in common. They had 2 things in common, or even 3. They were visionaries. They knew how to create business and create wealth, but they didn't have the financial tools or skills to maintain this wealth and to understand about risk, a little bit about risk management, basic stuff. And this went on through Hurricane Maria and COVID. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew that it was time to change the focus, the lens. I can see clearly now. And there's a song that says, I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. The rain is gone. I got it. I'm meant for more, and I am meant. My purpose is to help people, and people in business particularly, to understand the ins and outs of finance. So as they create, they can sustain what they are creating. So all these lessons that I've shared with you today, we go back, we start with be very careful of what people say to you. Don't shift your identity. My mother had no business shifting her identity. And my father didn't have the tools to understand that this was an opportunity for him to get closer to his wife. It had nothing to do with him. Another lesson we learned is you don't leave your children with anybody. Doesn't matter what situation you have, you figure that out. Because I brought that to my marriage. And when my husband and me had to travel and the girls were not with us, we traveled in separate planes because there was no way that one of us was going to have an accident after we saw what happened in 2001 with the Twin Towers. There was no way we were going to travel together until these girls had a legal age to protect themselves. That's what I learned from that. Moving forward, ego, we don't need ego. That's a waste of time. What we need is, number one, self-discovery. Discover who we are and why we're here on this planet and how we can take all that. And number two, create, innovate, and there's infinite possibilities. And that I learned from Deepak Chopra. I also learned that when we're going to create and innovate, let's take it to blue skies, as high as we can. And remember the bliss as a child. For me, it's flying the kite with the blue skies and letting go of the string. That's what we're doing here with clear goal of what we want is to create that blue sky, that freedom. And as we create this generational wealth, we have a responsibility to teach our children what finance literacy is, 101 all the way to 110. And if we're going to leave these funds for a nonprofit or to a niece or nephew, we need to communicate with them clearly what we want to do. What is the purpose and what is this money tailored towards? And as we create wealth and we create transformation for others, number three is legacy. We are designing and creating a legacy because when we turn 100 and we look back, we can say, wow, I made this place a better place. And I have one question for you all. When does legacy start? Does it start when we're born, when we're a child, when we're an adult? Or does it start now? Or does it even matter? I think our life experiences shape us to become a better version of ourselves. And that's when we awaken to that. That's when we start seeing the bigger picture of life. And that's when we start creating legacy. So I invite you all to take all your life experiences and rediscover who you are to be the best version of yourself, to let go of old patterns and belief system and limited beliefs and identities that somebody served you at one point. It doesn't make any sense for the power that you have, this internal power that we have to create and innovate. And as I learned in Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, giving is awesome. And as I learned with Professor Porras at the Stanford Business School, when he said to us, you have a responsibility to scale your businesses so you can help your communities. And that's what this is all about, is taking all this information that we learn and creating a legacy that's going to make us happy when we're ready to exit our business. And we're just ready to just look at the blue sky. Thank you.